GM Growth Fam, welcome to at Stock Growth. Today I have Aarti, who is the senior comms lead at Helium. I think one of the projects that I've been following since 2021. So it's been almost 4 years of me looking at Helium's amazing journey. And essentially, we're going to be touching upon a lot of different topics, the success behind Helium, and why is it that Helium's probably one of the few projects that's been able to transcribe the journey from Web3 to Web2 and vice versa. So, Aarti, thank you so much for making it today. I know you have a very busy schedule, lots of exciting stuff happening around Helium, so I appreciate you taking out the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me here. I'm excited.
Awesome, lovely. So generally podcasts get started with like, okay, tell me your story, blah, blah, blah. What I want to do is I want to give you 30 seconds to
Okay,
think about how you would pitch yourselves, your story, your personality in 30 seconds. So kick it off.
sounds good. Well, hi everyone. I'm Aarti. I'm a creative marketer with over 8 years of experience and almost 4 years of crypto growth. I currently lead communications at Helium and Helium Mobile. I'm based in San Francisco. It's been over 10 years. I have a fashion and fintech background, so that's why I love thinking very creatively when it comes to community driven strategies, and I love to tell tech relatable stories. Yeah, my passion is kind of like building brands that pitch this crypto with real world utility. That's why I absolutely love doing comms and marketing for Helium. And yeah, excited to be here and chat more about Deepin and Helium.
Awesome. Right on the money. So, I think most of the people that enter PR comms, generally speaking, and I might get cancelled for this, mostly come from a journalism background, right? I've
Mhm.
seen a lot of people who enter like PR and comms from that background. However, you came from a fashion background to then becoming a marketer, then going into product, then coming back into creative storytelling, and now into crypto. So, what was this Eureka moment for you that drove you into Web3?
Yeah, I remember like almost 5 years ago, I was at a marketing agency and I had gotten my first crypto client. The project name was Securitize, and I started to learn a little bit fundamentals about crypto in general. And I realized that the transparency and the shared economy. Now, what does all this tech gibberish mean for audience who is really new to crypto here? Like, think of it as like time. So today, if somebody tells us it's like 2 p.m. Pacific, why do we believe this? Because our laptop is saying it's 2 p.m. Pacific, our phone is saying that, our watch is saying that. If we Google on internet, we will find out that yes, it is 2 p.m. Pacific. So this transparency across all these devices that makes us come to like, okay, yes, it is 2 p.m. Pacific. That really got my attention. Like a transparent layer, like whatever transactions that happen, there will be a record of this and it will be open for everybody to source this data. And that started to make a little bit more sense. And then as I deep dive more into like these this decentralized economy, that means not one entity has the power to all. For example, decentralized physical infrastructure networks. This is a shared, like something bootstrapping of physical networks using this token incentives where you are kind of giving an incentive and encouraging people to share something that they own. So now everybody is now the owner of that network or kind of is participating. So I think that got me really interested, like the community part of it, the transparency part of it, and making sure that there are there are definitely some problems in today's world where assets and tools and resources are not really available to mass adoption, and crypto is like really making it easy for more and more people to get their hands on technologies. Yeah, I guess that was my eureka moment, the transparency part and the shared economy of crypto. That really made sense to me, and that got me excited.
That's lovely. That's awesome. And what were some of the, let's say, learnings from Web 2 that you brought into Web 3?
Yeah, I guess at Helium, we like day to day think a lot about what kind of out of home like marketing and ads that we are doing. For example, like we recently did an ad where we did Helium Mobile all across Times Square, where we were like digital ads, and people like New York Times Square is a big tourist attraction in the United States of America. There's like heavy footfall traffic. There were hotspots deployed all around New York. So just like this brand awareness and being creative on how do you really break this digital noise, right? Like a lot of people are constantly on social media. How do you keep messaging simple? Because like these days people have really short attention span. They are like constantly scrolling. I remember when Helium started like a few years ago, like the messaging was so simple. People were buying these Helium hotspots and they would just connect it to their electric plug at home and quickly have a wallet and then start earning HNT. So I would say some of the lessons is like make sure when you have a product, keep the community onboarding really, really simple and like just keep obsessing over it. Like, what are some of the challenges that users are having when onboarding to your product, and how can you make the entire onboarding process really, really simple? And think of some creative ways that you are making an impression beyond the digital noise, like how you are coming up with your activations. And I would love to say that in the end, it's like referral is a really big thing. Make sure your product is so well executed. The users, the customers are loving it and they are going out and sharing it with their friends, with their families. Like, hey, like we see that a lot in our Helium mobile phone plans where people are like getting these free plans, they're trying the service and they're like, oh, this is absolutely free and I have this great service. So they naturally just advocate for the product themselves and share with all their friends and family.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, potentially transitions me into my next question, which was going to be, so when I got to know about Helium and what the team was doing, what it was all about, so on and so forth. At that point in time, probably I think one Deepin was new. It was not a old, sort of concept that was being refurbished. Second thing was that most people that owned and used Helium hotspots weren't crypto native people at all. They were like just people who saw this concept that, okay, it's pretty cool. I can install a hotspot and I can make money out of it. And that was, I think, one of the biggest drivers behind Helium being able to spread across because it was able to touch this nerve with the Web2 audience. And I've personally dived into like what those triggers are, but I'd love to know from you what was it that made Helium almost so irresistible to a Web2 audience when most of the people back at that point in time probably thought either crypto is a scam or like it's just a quick buck scheme, and just be able to sustain that growth that you had with early community, turning them into evangelists, and now, taking that growth forward.
Yeah, I would say, look, consistency is really everything, right? Like we touched upon these factors of like keeping it really, really simple for people to just onboard. As you mentioned, like a lot of early adopters of Helium were like novices to crypto. They had no idea. They were most likely like people who are deploying like antennas on top of the roofs. They have no idea about crypto, keeping their 12-word seed phrase. It's pretty funny. So I was in Austin recently for South by Southwest conference and going around to this local breweries and coffee shops and deploying Helium hotspots for some of the pop-ups events that Helium Mobile did. And I did meet a deployer in person who told me that he had this Helium IoT hotspot a few years ago, but he has so many rewards that he earned because his hotspot was providing connectivity in Austin, where it was connecting these sensors and passing millions of data throughout the day. So, like, he told me that he doesn't remember his wallet password anymore. And it quickly came to me like, yes, a lot of people, they don't even who interact with the Helium ecosystem day to day, they really have no idea about crypto. So it's so important for just the product to be so easy. So like I don't know if you have interacted with our Helium mobile app today because it's US only, or if you know about the Helium mobile hotspot, but it's really easy. There's probably a video of like me on like YouTube onboarding a Helium mobile hotspot. So highly recommend check it out or like add a link so people can see. But it's, I think you can see like the box of the hotspot before, but it's really simple. It's like a small black box that you just connect to your internet, or you can just plug into your wall, go to the app and connect, and boom, like you share your internet access with people and connect these underserved markets. So going back to your question, like I think consistency is really key. Like Helium started as an IoT network and soon grew to be the largest IoT network in the world. And then they started with the second network, which is the mobile network, today called as like Helium Mobile. There's like a lot of like consistency in branding when it comes to like their social messaging. They are very like we try to keep it really, really simple for our audience to understand. And simplicity, we have just observed like that just drives adoption because all the early hotspot owners on HNT. Today if you have the Helium mobile hotspot and if you're providing connectivity, you are earning HNT as well. Just referrals, like Helium mobile has today, if you sign up for a free phone plan and if you refer somebody else for a free phone plan, both of you not only get a free phone plan but also $5 because you guys are spreading the words. Just like in the branding and marketing, making sure that the users have no obstructions when signing up for a product or a service. So lower all the barriers so that your users can become the best marketers for you.
Absolutely. And I was actually gonna ask this. So like most of the let's say projects that I've interacted with or companies that I've worked with, one of the biggest challenges is how do you take your story, your pain point, and the technical prowess of what it is that you're building and translate that story not just on Twitter but also on traditional PR, right? I
Mhm.
think most founders or most teams try to solve that with, okay, let's get a PR agency on board, right? Or let's get somebody with a lot of PR experience to do that storytelling. In your mind, what does a team need to do in order to build a compelling enough story that it just naturally becomes newsworthy?
Yeah, look, a lot of times this news or this storytelling does not become like a overnight sensation, right? Like it takes a village sometimes, most of the times. So it's really important to do a couple of things. For example, if you are new to the ecosystem, like there are, if you just search for Helium, you will see a lot of Helium community members constantly talking about Helium on crypto Twitter, on Discord. We have more than 180,000 users just constantly chatting in our general channel, helping other community members just to understand, okay, where are the best places to deploy the hotspots, or constantly discussing about new developments in the ecosystem. I'm not sure if the audience here knows, but like Helium has a governance where all people come together, write HRPs, like discuss any protocol upgrades happening to the ecosystem, and collaboratively like vote on things, make decisions of like what kind of network upgrades they want to do. So it's what I'm coming to at is it's really important to blend like this online storytelling with the people side of things. Today Helium's team, like we do a lot of events which are not just crypto events but also very consumer focused events. Like our BD and network team was recently at Las Vegas for this fitness conference where they were collecting leads with like uh, gyms across United States and beyond, just to get like the Helium network coverage to more heavy footfall traffic kind of locations. So it's very important to not only cater to crypto audience but also to this other mainstream kind of market. Today we collaborate with like a lot of influencers on YouTube who have more than 100K, or like macro influencers like Caleb Hammer. We also do like partnerships with like campuses across United States. Like we have this partnership with USC LA, which is a university in Los Angeles. We partner their athletic games with USC Trojans. So my advice would be for like branding and storytelling, like find the audience that you want to really reach out to. Day to day, we also partner with financial, tech savvy, those kind of influencers to reach more audience, and make sure you are not saturating any type of audience and are always reaching out to them with like fresh content for like great storytelling.
I think that's a great piece of advice. And honestly, the obsession with trying to only target crypto natives and not expanding the horizon beyond to anybody who could potentially benefit from being a part of the ecosystem is really an underrated piece of advice. I feel like, especially when it comes to something like PR or storytelling, when you're actually trying to figure out who does your brand resonate with, it's not just going to be people who already understand crypto, but if you're building a good product, it's potentially going to be solving a lot more many issues. And I think it's really also very interesting that that is what essentially drives the interest for people to participate within governance. Because I feel like, and I could be potentially wrong on this, but governance was a huge aspect of the last bull cycle and slightly before that as well, where people were really interested in being able to have a voice within protocols and within products, what's happening with them, so on and so forth. And now that sort of died out for, I don't know, maybe it has, maybe it hasn't, but it does seem like we talk less about governance. And I think a lot of that is due to just products not being there, the story not resonating with people, and so on and so forth. One thing I was really interested in understanding from you, so you have a pretty wide design background. What part do you feel like design plays in storytelling? Like, how do you play around with your graphics, your images, the way you're portraying your brand out there? Because I also feel like a lot of crypto brands look, feel, talk the same, right? I think it's almost an epidemic at this point. So, and the few that are, risk takers and actually have a unique visual language, they stand out. I think Mega ETH is a brilliant example of that. Helium's probably one of the older examples of what you can do with great design storytelling. So, what role do you feel that plays?
Yeah, well, I do a lot of like communications and storytelling. So the design background in me really keeps me true to being creative when it comes to like all my copy. I always keep consumer first. So oftentimes I work with developers in the ecosystem. Let's just take governance as example. Sometimes, most of the times when you read a lot of developer documentations and as a customer first who is reading newspapers all day and you suddenly see like HIP, you are like, what the hell is that? So I guess coming from a customer first mindset, I always try to edit or like tone down my technical heavy dev blog to something that is easily digestible. Macro users that are reading or finding out about Helium for the first time through Twitter or through different ecosystems. Say somebody from Ethereum is reading something about Helium, they need to understand like what do we do? They need to maybe in like two sentences understand that okay, Helium is the leader of Deepin and they are having like they have free phone plans. So like it is really important as somebody who is in communications and marketing to think that majority of the audience is learning about crypto for the first time, and it is like how easy can you make it, or like how easy can you brand your product really helps. Touching on a little bit on the design side, at Helium we have an amazing creative director. His name is Pete, so shout out and credit where due. Pete is amazing when it comes to like just putting together mascots that are very relatable. We did this whole campaign at Helium Mobile just last year around Gigi, which is like a goose, and we gave away like Gigi points to people, kind of like keeping the community more exciting. I don't know if you have seen, but like very recently we have this campaign around clouds going on because we have free phone plans and you kind of see clouds from everywhere, so kind of Helium is everywhere. And we often collect feedback from our customers, like testimonials. When we are out at the events, we will talk to them in person, we will show them our mascots. One thing that we really believe at Helium is building in public. And going back to governance, like you mentioned, people don't talk about it, but it's been almost 2 years at Helium, and our governance is really, really hot. We have people, I would say, community calls happen once every month, and there are more than 100 people on these monthly community calls. Helium has two full-time working groups, which means that every week, twice, so like 2 hours, this community group of the IoT working group comes together and the mobile working group. These are volunteers, they come together, they discuss what kind of protocol upgrades they want to do, they write all the documents for it, then it goes to helium.vote. You guys, you can just like type in Helium vote, where you can see all the proposals that have been voted to in the past. While we are talking about governance, I just wanted to let everybody listening to this podcast know that there was a big ecosystem upgrade that happened just last month in Helium, where HIP 138, the proposal that passed and brought the entire ecosystem back to HNT. So today, if you are a Helium hotspot deployer for providing connectivity in your region, from that hotspot you earn HNT. So that's kind of like really big in the community, and the whole community was celebrating the return to HNT from IoT and mobile tokens.
That's really lovely. It brings me back to one of the things that we just spoke about. So Helium's been very successful when it comes to building partnerships. So whether that's Solana on the crypto side, whether that's T-Mobile on, the sort of traditional tech industry side. What do you feel like is the secret sauce behind Helium that has enabled it to have strong partnerships on both sides, and that has allowed you to sort of position the product in a place probably where every single crypto project wants to be on. Like you want to appeal to a Web2 audience, and the Web2 brands, companies, organizations. And on the crypto side, you also want to appeal to a whole host of projects that you could potentially partner with. What do you feel like from a communication standpoint has been the secret sauce for you guys?
Well, the secret sauce is everything that we spoke about since the beginning of the call. I think it's definitely a combination of that consistency, of that branding, of making sure it's extremely easy for people to onboard or to use your product, and just being out there and talking to people about how Helium is really different. But I think one like really key or something that I would like to highlight is we definitely focus more on the utility part of the network than the crypto side of the network. Now, what do we mean by that, right? Like if you see a lot of our marketing, like especially on the Helium mobile side, like everybody needs a phone. Everybody is on their phone today. So sticking to the story of like free phone plans, like today, if you are using social media, like why would you not want to try something that is absolutely free and has utility? So I guess focusing on that part, and what is useful when it comes to partnerships, how do we really show utility in partnership, right? So think about when we go to these telecom partners, we always keep the story of like what is the utility that we are adding over here for T-Mobile. Like I don't know if you know a lot about like hybrid coverage and like how does Helium Mobile really work. Do you? Or like I can get into like the technical part of it a little bit, but like today there is on an average people in America spend 60 to $100 on a
Yeah,
phone
it's
plan
pretty
a month.
crazy. As
The
an Indian,
numbers
that
are
is absolutely ludicrous to me.
right, like that numbers are really insane. So
Yeah.
how Helium Mobile is different is because it is a hybrid network. So now what does hybrid network really mean? So think of it as where you have backed by the largest 5G network, which is the T-Mobile network in the States, and then you also have this community built network. So where there are like dead zones or you don't have proper coverage, you switch between the two, and as a user it's so seamless that you don't even see that you are switching. The user is just, as a benefit to a user, the user is paying the free phone plan or is on the lowest phone plan, which is $15 or either $30 a month. And for T-Mobile, the user has a better experience because in areas where T-Mobile doesn't has its own coverage, people have this Helium hotspot coverage. Now there is a whole, like I don't know if a lot of users are familiar about like how this telcos work. So today, in order to deploy a big cell phone infrastructure in like a less foot traffic area, the big companies don't really have an incentive to go deploy a cell phone tower in the middle of, I don't know, Minnesota, where there is like no foot traffic. But when you think of like this building this connectivity gap, there are a bunch of like videos on Helium's YouTube channel. So feel free to take a look. But like today, there are restaurants, businesses, stadiums, like business owners are just onboarding their current infrastructure and deploying these like Helium hotspots to build that connectivity gap where the current telco's network doesn't even exist. So it is not about, like, sometimes I get these questions of like, oh, but like, are you guys competing to this big telco companies? That is not true, because it's not this against Helium. It is about
It's
how,
this and
yeah, it's more about complementary networks of like how it's a new way of building cell phone towers today.
that's I think what it boils down to is you're not trying to make a problem that doesn't exist, but you're trying to figure out within, let's say, a large telco like T-Mobile. It doesn't seem obvious to people that connectivity is probably going to be an issue, but it's such a pertinent problem that Helium as a partner just makes sense over there.
So, like, I live in San Francisco today, and we are the biggest, like, one of the most leading in technology innovation city in the world. And to be honest with you, like, there are areas like 15 minutes drive from my house where I don't have internet coverage. It's like dead. So just to deploy cell phone coverage in those areas will cost these companies like AT&T, T-Mobile millions of dollars. Versus there is this small hotspot that cost maybe like 250 dollars, or you can get like an outdoor hotspot which is slightly more expensive, and you can deploy and make sure that area has connectivity. So the problem today already exists, where there are still so many areas that lack internet connectivity. And the mission of the company is simple. We just believe that in today's world, nobody should be paying for internet. It is a basic need, and we are able to change that by building this community built network. So it is now not centralized, like there is no one entity that owns it, but now there is these thousands of hotspots coming together and sharing. So I would, to make things really very easy for the audience here, I would think of this as Uber or Airbnb of telco.
I think that's the headline that I'm probably going to use for this video. So that piece is
Yeah.
sorted.
So like I guess like just like when you dig like really deep of like the problem that deepen and this physical infrastructure, decentralized physical infrastructure network is really solving is when you try to understand the shared economy model, where deepen is really like bootstrapping how to scale this physical network. Like just going back to this in um, this announcement at Digital Asset Summit 2025 in New York, that was just yesterday, where Kathy Woods, who is a CEO and founder of ARK Invest, she was at the stage talking about how Deepin is a bridge, like that connectivity of the physical world and the real world. And I think like she put it out so beautifully.
No, absolutely. I think anyone who was sitting with the helium bags was very happy yesterday. So that's amazing. And just to wrap this up, I would love to ask any one piece of advice that you would give to any up and coming marketers, storytellers, PR people who are entering the industry. What's one piece of advice you'd give?
I would say don't get lost in all the NFT or memes or like short term ads or commercial stories. Like, just really keep focusing on the utility side of what your product is really trying to solve. Test out different audiences, because oftentimes when I talk to other ecosystems, I feel like their attention is so much on just crypto Twitter, and sometimes they forget that they might have just saturated that market, and maybe that's why not seeing just high engagement or seeing more people interact with their products. So it's really key to test out different audiences, collaborate, partner. And one thing I like to say, like, don't always wait for putting out the best thing out there. Sometimes it's okay just to throw ideas on a random Twitter post and just engage and see what other people think about that idea or that product or that feature that you are about to drop. So build in public and take as many feedback as you can from other audiences, and focus on the utility and keep at it.
Awesome. That was quite insightful. I personally, I think I learned quite a bit, especially on the storytelling side, because we say quite few about, okay, I'm losing words, but we don't talk as much about storytelling within crypto, within Web3. And it almost becomes like an afterthought of,
Yeah.
okay, build and they'll come is really not true. And you have to focus on communicating your utility. So, Aarti, thank you so much for taking out time today and doing this wonderful episode. Thank you for the audience who stuck till the end and watched this. And I hope to see you in the next episode next week. GM
Yeah.
and bye bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.